I want you to take out your wallet right now, open it up, and pull out a physical paper bill. It does not matter if it is a 20, a 50, or a $100 bill. I want you to hold that piece of paper in your hands and look at it very closely. Feel the texture of the paper. Look at the intricate green ink, the dead politicians printed on the front, and the official government seals. From the exact moment you were born, you have been meticulously, psychologically conditioned to believe that this piece of paper represents true, solid wealth. You have been taught to sacrifice the best years of your life, to exhaust your physical body, and to trade your precious, non-renewable human time just to accumulate as many of these green pieces of paper as humanly possible. But today I am going to reveal a financial truth so incredibly dark, so mathematically terrifying, and so deeply guarded by the global elite that it will completely shatter your entire perception of reality. That piece of paper you are holding in your hand is not real money. It contains absolutely zero intrinsic value. It is not backed by gold, it is not backed by silver, and it is not backed by any physical asset on the planet. It is simply a highly sophisticated, globally accepted hallucination. It is a depreciating receipt of debt issued by a completely bankrupt government, and it is actively melting in your hands like a cube of ice in the summer sun. In this massive video, we are going to violently unplug you from the ultimate financial matrix. We are going to expose the greatest legal theft in modern human history, explain the brutal mathematics of the global Fiat Ponzi scheme, and show you exactly how the central banks are silently stealing your wealth while you are fast asleep. And if you stick with me until the absolute end of this video, I will give you the exact step-by-step escape plan that the top 1% elite use to completely protect their wealth and build massive empires, while the middle class gets completely crushed by the invisible tax of inflation. To truly understand the absolute magnitude of this global financial scam, we have to travel back in time to understand what real money actually used to be. For thousands of years of human history, real money was always a physical, scarce commodity. It was gold. Gold was the ultimate money because it required immense physical labor, time, and human energy to dig it out of the ground. No king, no emperor, and no politician could simply snap their fingers and magically create more gold out of thin air. Because it was physically scarce, it perfectly preserved the purchasing power of the people who held it. When the United States became a global superpower, the mighty American dollar was as good as gold. If you held a $20 paper bill in the year 1920, you could physically walk into a bank, hand them that piece of paper, and they were legally obligated to hand you a 1-ounce solid gold coin in return. The paper was simply a convenient, lightweight receipt for the real physical wealth sitting completely safe inside the bank vault. The government could not print paper money unless they actually held the physical gold in the vault to back it up. This kept the politicians honest, and it mathematically protected the working class from inflation. But then came the darkest, most financially destructive day in modern economic history. On August 15th, 1971, the President of the United States, Richard Nixon, interrupted normal television broadcasting to make a sudden, terrifying announcement to the entire world. In a brief, highly calculated speech, Nixon announced that he was temporarily suspending the convertibility of the United States dollar into gold. He told the public that this was a temporary measure to stabilize the economy, but that temporary measure became permanently frozen in time. On that exact day, the global financial matrix as we know it today was officially born. The golden chains that restricted the government were violently cut. The American dollar and eventually every other major currency on the entire planet became what is known as fiat currency. The word fiat is a Latin word that literally translates to by decree. It means that the money only has value because the government points a gun at you and legally forces you to accept it and pay your taxes with it. The exact second the dollar was detached from gold, the global economy was fundamentally hijacked. The central banks, known in America as the Federal Reserve, gained the terrifying, unlimited, and godlike power to create infinite amounts of money completely out of thin air. They do not have to dig for gold anymore. They do not have to produce any real physical value. When the government decides they want to fund a massive new war, bail out corrupt Wall Street banks, or artificially stimulate a collapsing economy, they do not have to raise your taxes directly. That would cause a massive political revolution. Instead, the central bankers simply sit in a comfortable leather chair in a dark room, push a few buttons on a glowing computer keyboard, and magically type trillions of new digital dollars directly into the global banking system. But here is the absolute, brutal mathematical reality that the traditional education system deliberately refuses to teach you. When the central bank prints trillions of new dollars out of thin air, they are not actually creating new wealth. It is mathematically impossible to print wealth. All they are doing is aggressively diluting the purchasing power of the dollars that are already sitting in your savings account. Think of it like a massive pizza. If a pizza is cut into 8 slices, each slice is large and satisfying. If the government suddenly decides to cut that exact same pizza into 80 microscopic slices, they did not magically create more food. They simply made your individual slice completely worthless. This brings us to the most deeply misunderstood, highly manipulated, and terrifying concept in the modern economy: inflation. The media, the politicians, and the fake financial gurus constantly lie to you about what inflation actually is. They stand at a podium and tell you that inflation means the greedy corporations are raising the prices of groceries, gasoline, and housing. That is a complete and absolute lie. The physical house is not going up in value. The physical gallon of gasoline is not changing its chemical composition. The price is not going up. What is actually happening is that the fiat currency you hold in your wallet is violently crashing in value. It requires more of those heavily diluted, worthless paper receipts to purchase the exact same physical asset. Inflation is not an accident of the free market. It is a highly calculated, unvoted, and completely invisible tax levied directly against the working class. But the psychological horror of inflation goes much deeper than just paying more for milk at the grocery store. I want you to think about what your savings account actually represents. When you go to your corporate job, you are physically trading the irreplaceable hours of your human life, your physical energy, and your intellectual focus in exchange for money. Therefore, the money in your savings account is literally the stored, physical energy of your past. It represents the hundreds of hours you spent away from your family, sweating and stressing in a cubicle. When the central bank prints trillions of new dollars and causes massive inflation, they are not just making things expensive today. They are actively, mathematically reaching their hands backwards through time, and they are silently stealing the physical hours of human labor that you already worked in the past. If you worked 1,000 hours 5 years ago and saved that money in a bank account, the inflation caused by money printing has literally deleted 500 of those hours from your life's ledger. They stole your time without ever breaking into your house, without ever holding a gun to your head, and without you ever even noticing. This is the ultimate terrifying genius of the Fiat Ponzi scheme. It is a silent global vacuum cleaner that constantly extracts the stored life force of the middle class and funnels it directly up to the financial elite. But why does the system do this? Why does the government intentionally destroy the value of its own money? To understand the motive, you have to understand a deeply hidden economic principle called the Cantillon Effect. Named after an 18th century economist, the Cantillon Effect explains exactly how the ultra-wealthy use the printing press to completely enrich themselves at your direct expense. When the central bank prints a massive wave of new $1 trillion, that money does not magically appear in the pockets of the hardworking middle class. It does not go to the teachers, the construction workers, or the nurses. That newly printed fresh money flows directly into the massive Wall Street banks, the private equity firms, and the giant multinational corporations first. Because the elite get access to this massive flood of new money first, they get to spend it before the inflation actually hits the broader economy. They take these trillions of cheap, newly printed dollars and they aggressively use them to buy up all the hard, scarce assets on the planet. They buy massive commercial real estate portfolios. They buy thousands of single-family homes. They buy millions of acres of fertile farmland. And they buy massive amounts of corporate stock. By the time that newly printed money finally trickles down into the economy and reaches your pathetic 3% annual salary raise, the prices of houses, stocks, and food have already skyrocketed to the moon. The elite used the fake printed money to buy real physical assets, while you are left holding a completely devalued melting currency that can no longer afford the down payment on a simple house. The Cantillon Effect is the exact mathematical reason why the rich get exponentially richer during economic crises, while the middle class is permanently pushed out of the ownership class and forced to become lifelong renters. Let us look at a brutal, undeniable real-world example to completely shatter the illusion of saving fiat currency. Let us introduce two different individuals, Sarah and Marcus. Sarah is a highly conservative, traditional worker who fully believes the lies of the financial matrix. In the year 2010, Sarah works incredibly hard and manages to save $100,000 in pure cash. Because she is terrified of risk and listens to traditional financial advisors, she puts that entire $100,000 into a high-yield savings account at a major bank, completely believing it is the absolute safest place on earth. Now let us look at Marcus. Marcus is financially awake. He deeply understands that the fiat dollar is a massive Ponzi scheme, and he treats physical cash like a terrifying melting block of ice. In the year 2010, Marcus also has $100,000. But instead of leaving it in the bank to be silently stolen by inflation, Marcus immediately violently dumps that cash. He takes the $100,000 and uses it as a 20% down payment to buy a massive $500,000 cash-flowing apartment building. He locks his wealth inside a hard physical asset that the government absolutely cannot print on a keyboard. Let us fast forward to today. The central banks have printed trillions upon trillions of new dollars, massively diluting the currency. Sarah opens her bank app. Her $100,000 has grown slightly because of the pathetic bank interest. Maybe it is now $120,000. She feels a tiny, false sense of pride. But then she looks at the real-world economy. Because of massive inflation, the cost of housing, food, and healthcare has doubled. Her $120,000 in fiat currency buys mathematically less than half of what it could buy a decade ago. Sarah has been completely mathematically destroyed by playing it safe. She lost massive amounts of purchasing power without ever spending a single dime. Marcus, on the other hand, is completely laughing at the matrix. Because Marcus hid his wealth inside a hard asset, the inflation actively worked for him. The newly printed money flooded the economy and pushed the nominal price of his real estate straight to the moon. That $500,000 apartment building is now worth over $1.2 million. Furthermore, the massive debt he took on to buy the building was completely melted away by the same inflation, and he paid it off using the cheaper, heavily diluted dollars that his tenants gave him in rent. Marcus safely preserved his purchasing power, massively multiplied his net worth, and created a permanent stream of passive income entirely because he understood that holding fiat currency is a mathematical suicide mission. If you are listening to this exact sentence right now and you feel a massive, heavy curtain violently dropping from your eyes, realizing that the concept of money you have believed your entire life is an absolute, highly engineered corporate illusion, then you are officially ready to escape the fiat matrix. You must realize that saving massive amounts of cash in a traditional bank account is not a sign of financial responsibility. It is a sign of extreme financial illiteracy. Grab a pen and a piece of paper right now. Eliminate absolutely all distractions around you and prepare to execute this actionable step-by-step escape plan to permanently transition from a victim of the invisible inflation tax into an untouchable hard asset investor. Rule number 1, You must completely and radically change your psychological definition of what cash actually is. You must immediately stop viewing fiat currency as a safe store of value or a measure of your true wealth. Cash is not an investment. Cash is simply a temporary, highly volatile medium of exchange. It is a measuring stick that shrinks every single day. You should only hold enough liquid cash to cover your immediate operating expenses and a highly strategic, short-term emergency fund. Every single dollar you hold above that absolute minimum is actively bleeding purchasing power. Your new primary financial goal is to hold cash for the absolute shortest amount of time physically possible before aggressively deploying it into the real world. Rule number 2. You must become absolutely clinically obsessed with acquiring scarce, hard assets. The only possible way to protect the stored energy of your past labor from the government's printing press is to convert your fake fiat currency into assets that the government literally cannot print. You must aggressively buy cash-flowing commercial real estate. You must buy equity in highly profitable private businesses. You must buy shares of massive dominant public corporations. And you must explore mathematically scarce digital assets that have a hard, unchangeable supply cap. When the central bank inevitably panics and prints another $10 trillion to bail out the system, the prices of your hard assets will automatically, mathematically, adjust upwards to absorb that newly printed liquidity. You are building an impenetrable, permanent fortress around your purchasing power that no politician can ever vote to take away from you. Rule number 3. You must completely master the art of shorting the fiat currency using fixed-rate good debt. As we discussed deeply in our previous video, the absolute ultimate weapon of the global elite is borrowing fiat currency today, buying a hard asset with it, and paying the bank back. Over 30 years using cheaper, heavily inflated dollars, you are legally, mathematically, stealing wealth back from the banking system. When you lock in a massive, low-interest, 30-year fixed mortgage on a cash-flowing rental property, you are actively betting against the strength of the dollar. You are forcing the invisible tax of inflation to completely destroy your debt balance instead of destroying your savings. Let us summarize this brutal, mind-bending reality before you go out and take massive, life-changing action today. The modern financial system is not broken. It is functioning exactly, perfectly, as it was meticulously designed to function by the elite. It is a highly efficient extraction machine designed to force the middle class to trade their real physical life energy for fake, infinite paper receipts, and then silently steal that energy back through the invisible tax of inflation. The traditional advice to go to school, get a safe job, and save your cash in a bank account is the absolute most dangerous, toxic financial advice in the modern world. It is a guaranteed mathematical formula for lifelong financial slavery. The only possible way to win this completely rigged game is to violently unplug yourself from the illusion of paper money, stop saving fiat currency, and aggressively transition your entire net worth into a massive portfolio of hard, cash-flowing assets that the government cannot print on a keyboard. If this terrifying, reality-shattering information finally opened your eyes, if you feel like I just violently ripped you out of the fiat matrix and handed you the absolute truth about how the global economy is actively rigged against you, then I need you to absolutely destroy that like button and subscribe to the channel right now. You absolutely cannot afford to miss the extremely high-level, aggressive wealth-building strategies we have coming up next on this massive channel. And speaking of massive financial traps that are specifically designed to steal your money while you sleep. If you want to deeply understand the absolute biggest lie ever told by the traditional investment world, and exactly how the concept of dividing your money into 50 different places mathematically guarantees you will never be truly wealthy, you have to watch this video right here on the screen. In it, I completely break down the ultimate diversification myth, and I show you exactly why Wall Street forces you to diversify so they can steal your wealth through hidden fees, while the true 1% billionaires aggressively concentrate their investments to build empires. Click that video right now. Your future self will eternally thank you. I will see you over there on the other side.